I'm happy that our guys showed the resiliency that we need to have and that you have to have in order to go on the road and win. It's never easy winning this league. I told them enjoy it, but there's plenty to work on and plenty to improve upon.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Sports theme from the weekend? Needed it. We needed it. All parties involved needed it. Packers needed that win. Whether it was as pretty as we wanted, needed it. Because while the Malik Willis, Jordan Love thing is nothing, Malik Willis got to play the Colts, who aren't that good. And Malik Willis got to play the Titans, who are quarterbacked by Will Levis, who stinks. But, you get 5 games into the season, Jordan Love's 0-3 in his starts. I'm not even saying it would be a problem. I'm not even saying it would be a thing, but at some point, Jordan Love needs to win his first game in 2024. So the Packers needed that. Jordan Love needed that. Matt LaFleur needed that. That was a Rams team that was beatable, banged up, well coached, and I still think lots of talent. That's a well-run team and not a pushover, but needed that win. I think the Badgers needed that win a lot, and Purdue is awful, but they hammered them. And Luke Fickell is building this thing, recruiting, forming this program the way that he wants to form it. That takes time, but through that process, you need celebrations. You need something to celebrate. And Luke Fickell, I was talking to Zach Heilprin, who is in the building this afternoon. Zach said, Fickell kept talking about how the guys were acting. They were acting like 13, 14-year-olds in the locker room. They were so happy. They needed that. Badgers needed that. Packers needed that. I think we needed that. I needed that. I needed just a weekend of football games. I needed a couple of days to remove myself from what happened to the Brewers. I needed that. I just needed Vikings, Jets, 9 a.m. Perfect. Put it on my TV. I just need things. I need more sports things in the news cycle. I need to watch more games. I need more. Just give it to me. I need it. I need things to become front of mind so that Brewers loss from last week continues to get pushed farther and farther back. It's still in there. It's still in my mind. That game will never leave my mind. I feel it in the back of my brain. I can feel it in between my legs from where I got kicked in the store on Thursday night. But I needed this weekend just to watch some sports that didn't have me thinking of the Brewers. And I watched some of the playoffs, the baseball playoffs too. And the Mets are on, and that stings. But it's good baseball. I'm a baseball fan. I'm not going to turn down a good baseball divisional series just because my Brewers got beat by the Mets last round. I'm going to watch. But I think we all needed the weekend. Both of our football teams, I think us Brewers fans needed the weekend. Happy to be back. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Going to talk mostly about the Packer game tonight. If you have a Badgers thought, it's not a problem. We can discuss it. I don't have a ton to say. We'll probably talk a little bit more Badgers in the middle of the week. We'll connect with Jesse from The Athletic, Jesse Temple. Maybe we'll get Zach on at some point this week, maybe Thursday or Friday as we start looking forward to Rutgers, that's a physical team. They are not Purdue. Right? This isn't your grandparents' Rutgers team. That's a real team. So we'll probably talk more Badgers as the week goes along. Talking a lot of Packers tonight and reacting to their 24-19 win over the Rams, which took place yesterday afternoon. Coming up in the second hour of the show, Ellie French is going to join us. New guest to the program, so everyone best behavior. We're going to impress her. She comes highly recommended. In fact, Mike Clemens texted me today and said, hey, Grant, you know who you should reach out to? Ellie French from Fox 11 in Green Bay, because she was at the game in L.A. and not all the reporters, not all the media. When it's a long road trip like that, not everybody goes. So it's not like everybody and anybody in the Packers beat and in Green Bay, Wisconsin media was there. Ellie was there. She's still there. So we're going to give her a call around 5:30. She can paint a little bit of a picture of what she saw at SoFi yesterday. And I'm also really interested, to hear about what she heard and saw in the locker room. Now, we hear comments. We could watch the clips from Xavier McKinney in front of his locker and Evan Williams, but we're not in the room. And it's really nice to talk to someone who is in the room, talk about the energy, talk about how did that win make those guys feel, right? How are they behaving differently yesterday in the locker room after a win over the Rams compared to how they were behaving a week ago after that loss to the Vikings? Win and loss, obviously going to be a happier room, but how is this team maturing and growing and what's changing? That's what I'm interested to talk about with Ellie. She's going to join us at about 5:30. I texted earlier today, said, hey, you're recommended by Mike. Would love to have you on if you have some time. She's like, absolutely. I'm hanging out here in LA because, well, I'm out here. I might as well. I think she's seeing some sights. And I'm sure the Santa Monica Pier, that's all they ever show during the broadcast, going in and out of commercial breaks. So we'll talk with her in hour number 2. Text the show, call the show, 608-321-1670. Want to hear from lots of Packers fans today. Show's live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You can comment on the live stream as well. I'll do my best to watch it. Very juicy game yesterday. Very juicy. There's a lot of meat on this bone. So we have a lot to pick through and to kind of pick at over the next 2 hours. And thank God they didn't blow this game. Thank God. I was just having the darkest thoughts as Matt Stafford's kind of moving him down the field under 2 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, if the Packers blow this game. I think I was really dreading the idea of the Packers blowing that game because we would have been in the same spot that we were a week ago after that loss to the Vikings. It's like, man, so many great things, but mistakes. And I thank God they didn't blow yesterday's game. Thank God. I want to attack this game chronologically. I just think that makes the most sense. It doesn't always make sense for every game to start the first quarter, go through not for every game. For this game, it does. I think it paints a very good picture and sets us up for the best analysis, the best discussions for the rest of the show. Offensively, just starting with the offense, and we'll get into the defense, I'm sure, as the show goes along. First and second quarter was both of those quarters were so emblematic of the Packers offense with Jordan Love in 2024 so far. So if we're just talking about the Eagles game, the Vikings game, and yesterday, the Willis games were different, lesser opponents, different strategy, different game plan, different everything. I don't want to throw those games out the window because there's useful data, there's plenty of useful things in those games. But for the purpose of this conversation, the first and second quarters yesterday were so emblematic of what the Packers have been when Jordan Love has been quarterbacking them so far in 2024. They can drive the ball with ease. They can hit explosive plays. They've hit explosive plays both with Love and Malik Willis. Explosive plays all over the place so far this season. Big runs, big passes. This offense can hum. We've seen it, even in losses to the Vikings and to the Eagles. They can also drop passes, crucial passes on third downs, right? Drops that end possessions. They can commit senseless penalties, dumb penalties. Some of my least favorite penalties are wide receiver, a false start by a wide receiver. Like, I get an offensive lineman every once in a while is going to flinch, especially on the road. Although I don't know that SoFi is a loud, hostile environment, but still, linemen are going to jump. Like Dontavian Wicks, right? Or Malik Heath or whoever. Like, those penalties really crawl up my rear end. Those are senseless penalties. And we've seen this team also be a little bit disjointed. Jordan Love and his wide receivers not perfectly on the same page on an outbreaking route or on a route towards the pylon, just slightly off from both quarterback and from wide receiver. Those first and second quarters yesterday, we saw it. We saw both sides of the coin. And it's kind of been the case. It was the case against Philly, so much good, so much bad. Case against Minnesota last week, too. So much good, so much bad. In both of those games, both of those losses, they moved the ball over 400 yards. That Vikings defense that Aaron Rodgers and the Jets they couldn't dent that defense yesterday. They couldn't move the ball at all. Jordan Love in a bad game, Packers offense in a bad game last week, moved the ball for over 400 yards on that unit. Like, they've moved the ball. They've hit explosive plays, but they've also shot themselves in the foot with penalties. And they've ended drives with drops. And an offensive lineman like Josh Myers yesterday fails to pick up a stunt on that first drive. And it basically blows the first possession because it's a sack. It's a negative play. Team gets off schedule, right? They're behind the sticks, down in distance, and the drive ends because of it. First and second quarter, we saw both sides of this Packers offense. That's been true in Philly. It was true against Minnesota, not in Minnesota, but in Green Bay against Minnesota. And then in SoFi yesterday. I think the Jordan Love pick 6 before halftime. We've seen a little bit of that so far this year. Jordan Love, I think his accuracy and his connection with his wide receivers, a little bit of that is rust because he missed 2 games. He's still, I think, really trying to get in a rhythm, and he's a rhythm thrower. I think he plays his way into a rhythm over the course of a game, over the course of a season. I don't know that he's the most accurate quarterback in the world. He wasn't drafted as that guy. He wasn't that guy last year, even when he was playing well. He needs to get into a rhythm, so we've seen that. I also think every once in a while, he's just not afraid to put the ball up. A little more Favre than Rodgers. And that annoys me sometimes a little bit when Packers fans are like, he's a lot more Favre than he is Rodgers. It's like, okay, so you're comparing 2 first ballot Hall of Famers, one of which won 3 straight MVPs and led the team to a Super Bowl. Just because he puts the ball in harm's way does not make him Favre. There are dozens of quarterbacks in my lifetime who all put the ball in harm's way, and they mostly sucked, right? Like, he might not be Favre. He might just be Jay Cutler. We're trying to figure out what Jordan Love is early on in his career and early on in this season. So Packers fans would just say, well, he's more Favre than Rodgers. It's like, man, don't we have it great? Those are our 2 points of reference for quarterbacks. Is he going to be a Favre or is he going to be a Rodgers? It's like in Mad Men. What is it? Everyone either wants to be a Marilyn or a Jackie. Like, yeah, those are the only 2 types of women that we're marketing to. Marilyns and Jackies. Yeah, the 2 considered most beautiful, attractive women at the time. Yeah, it's Favre or Rodgers. One of the 2. There's certainly no in between, and there's certainly no one lesser than that we could compare. That decision, I don't want to make excuses for Jordan Love with that pick 6. Horrible decision to throw that ball and a catastrophe of a result. As a fan watching in that moment, I almost, when that happened, I almost just went like this. I went like, you know what? Whatever, screw it. Just, all right, give us the ball back. Let's try this again. Because the Packers, we had seen them move the ball. We had seen them hit explosive plays. I could see it on the TV, even through the first 2 quarters, which were very disjointed. I'm like, the Packers can win this game. They can win this game going away. This game is so winnable. So when Jordan Love threw that pick 6, I'm like, okay, whatever. It's a once. Just give us the ball back. Give us the ball back. Try again. I wasn't really even that mad. It's just like, all right, get the ball back. Try it one more time. And they drove it down. Thank God Narveson hit that kick. That pick 6 is, you can view it lots of different ways. You can view it as a symptom. Oh, Jordan Love, way too, carefree with the ball. Man, I don't know. He was going to take a safety. It's not like he was Will Levis. They're in field goal range. All he should do is take the sack and take the 3 points. Like that. That's not really a comparable situation. I'm interested to hear what some of you have to say about that pick 6. I think everyone's going to view it a little bit differently. At halftime, and the Packers at halftime, what was the score at halftime again? They were down 13-10, which all things considered, that awful, awful pick 6 from the end zone and all the mistakes that the offense had made. Feeling fine down 3, and I tweeted at halftime. And actually, I will go read my tweet to you at Wisco Grant to make sure I don't paraphrase, to make sure I don't misquote myself. I tweeted at halftime, and this was kind of setting the stage for the 3rd and the 4th quarter. I said, if Jordan Love and the Packers are the contenders so many think that they are, I think I'm in that group, we're going to have to see it in the second half. Almost as if to say, look, I know Philly was weird. That game was in South America. Jordan Love coming back against Minnesota, maybe a little rusty. All right. The 3rd and the 4th quarter at SoFi against the Rams, I kind of need to see it. I know it's only the 5th game of the year, but I kind of need you to show me something here. And they did. They bounced back very nicely in the 3rd and the 4th quarter. The defense played very well. They tightened up a little against the run, not too much, but they tightened up just enough. And I know Vagabond John and others not going to like me saying this because last year, Joe Barry's defense would give up 19 points and we'd kill him. They held the Rams to 19 points. 6 of them was a pick 6. They had a huge 4th down stand in the first quarter. I thought the defense was fine. Some of the underlying numbers and performances aren't great, and we could talk about that. But I thought the offense and the defense really responded nicely in the 3rd and the 4th quarter. Would have loved to see the offense slam the door at the end. I would have loved for this win to be like 10, 15, 20% prettier. I would have loved for the offense to put one more score, whether it was a field goal or a touchdown, and end the game. I would have loved that. We didn't get it. And while this team has a lot to clean up and a lot to improve on, I'm pretty pleased. I'm pretty happy with this win. They just needed to get a win with Jordan Love on the road. Sean McVay is a really good coach, by the way. I think lost in everything yesterday as we're screaming and crying and yelling about how the Packers defense looked. And I was both underwhelmed and perfectly fine with what they did yesterday because the scoreboard result was fine. The underlying numbers and performances from individual players, not so much. I just think overall, especially after the Romeo Dobbs story of last week, especially after how the Vikings really beat them up the week before, I just think they needed to get a win. I'm believing this season more than ever before that it's really hard to win in this league. And I know coaches say it all the time and we roll our eyes because it's a cliche. And Bill brought this up earlier today. He's like, well, man, I'm not sure that I feel so great about the Cardinals game coming up. That's all of a sudden a real game. They're all real games, right? Especially when the Packers have shown us that they'll commit dumb penalties and they'll drop passes and they'll get in their own way. Right? None of these games are pushovers. None of these games can be taken for granted. Okay, so it was a 5-point game and the defense needed to make a nice play on 4th down in the game. Okay, I'll take it. It's a nice step from where we were a week ago, which was a nice step, I thought, from what we saw in Brazil, which was Jordan Love's last start before the Vikings game last weekend. Things to clean up, but a lot to be happy about. And I think that's Aaron Rodgers once said, it's a coach's favorite type of game, right? Where you get the win, but you still have a lot of things to clean up, right? And I think that's where we stand with the Packers right now. I'm still not sure if this team can be great. I think they have the pieces to be great, especially if some of their players on defense like Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark really start rounding into form in this new scheme and start playing well. I think they have a lot of room to grow along that defensive front. Jair gets healthy, hopefully stays healthy. You just knock on wood. Christian Watson, of course, gets healthy. Right. These are things that we can hope for. Guys who can come back. I think there's reason to believe that Jeff Hafley will coordinate a better defense and feel more comfortable as the year goes along. Right? I don't know that that was necessarily the case with Joe Barry last year because he'd already been here a couple of years. So there's really a lot of points along the defense, players and coaches that I think should improve over the course of the season. The offense, I'm not sure. We keep saying, and if you listen to any Packers postgame show from yesterday, or you read a blog, or you listen to a podcast, or you listen to a show like this, you hear a lot of people say, well, if they could just cut out the penalties and the mistakes, they can be great. And that's factually true. When this Packers offense doesn't commit penalties and doesn't drop the ball, they are an elite offense. They're a blowtorch of an offense. And I was talking with a buddy last night who's a Bears fan, and he kind of rolled my eyes when he said that. He's like, well, you could say that about any team. Yeah, but you can't. Like, the Jets are not penalties and self-inflicted mistakes away from being a great offense. That's just a bad offense. There are teams that just have bad offenses, whether they commit penalties or make mistakes. The Packers are an elite offense if they can avoid mistakes and drops and penalties and all those things. But part of being a great team, part of being a great offense is avoiding making mistakes, right? You can't say, well, we're a great team when we don't make mistakes. Well, then you're not a great team. Then you're a really talented team with a really high ceiling, but you're undisciplined. You're sloppy. You're not focused. You're letting distractions take over, right? Like contracts or your role in the offense, like we saw with Romeo Doubs last week, which, oh yeah, we're going to have to get to that during the show tonight as well. I don't like when people say, well, no team can beat the Packers. Only the Packers can beat the Packers. Well, okay, but then the Packers aren't good enough. Then they're sloppy. Then they're undisciplined. Well, they'd be a great team if they could just cut out the penalties. Well, if they can't cut out the penalties, they're not a great team. They're a good team. They're a talented team that's sloppy, undisciplined. So week by week now, and I said this after the Minnesota game last week, and I'll say this and we'll take a break and get to some calls. I said things are lined up very nicely the next couple of weeks as this team gets a little healthier. They have some games at home. They start at SoFi next weekend, coming out of this Vikings game again with a banged-up Rams team. The crowd should not be hostile. In fact, it sounded like a Packers crowd there. It sounded like a home game. They have things lined up the next couple of weeks to continue to build, to grow, and I want to see them start to cut out those penalties. I want to see them start to cut out the drops, because if they don't, I'm not going to say things like, well, they're a great team if they could just cut out. Well, no, then they're a young, sloppy, undisciplined team with a lot of talent. That's what they will become if we don't see some of these trends start to improve or even reverse, ideally, over the next couple of weeks. 608-321-1670. To your phone calls, to your thoughts. We'll continue talking Packers next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
After replay assist, the ruling on the field is a touchdown.
A second touchdown for Tucker Kraft in the quarter, both after McKinney takeaways.
It's a heck of a crowd pop. It's one thing for the Packers to not have to deal with crowd noise from an opposing fan base. It's another for their own fans to travel and provide crowd noise, right? You hope in a situation like that where the Packers go play the Rams or the Chargers or the Raiders. There's a couple of those opponents, most of them in California or in Vegas, right? Big tourist destinations where you expect there'll be a lot of Packers fans and you just hope, okay, the Packers shouldn't have to go silent count. They shouldn't have to deal with, crowd noise. It's another for the other team to have to deal with crowd noise. Listen to this crowd pop. This is a road game.
Touchdown.
It's a WWE when someone walks in. So we're reacting to yesterday's win. A lot to clean up and a lot of different details. There's a lot of meat on this bone, and we're going to pick at it from now until 6 o'clock. We haven't even gotten into the Romeo Dobbs situation. Matt LaFleur speaking right now, basically saying, yeah, this is an isolated incident. We don't expect for it to happen again. It's not surprising at all. If you have thoughts on the Romeo Dobbs situation or any of the good, the bad, or the ugly, Jordan Love's pick six yesterday in the Rams game, I would love to take your call. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Good afternoon, Grant. It's Thomas.
Hey, Thomas, what's going on?
Oh, not too much. I just have some game notes
Hit
from
me.
yesterday's game.
Yeah.
All right. First one, like you just mentioned, Jordan Love wasn't great. I mean, definitely some good, some bad throws in there. But overall, I would put his grade 8F as a solid B plus. That's
I think
being kind.
it's funny once the second half started, and I don't know. I don't have the quarter by quarter breakdown in front of me, but I saw a lot of tweets and comments from Packers fans in the third quarter where it's he came out and I think started the second half 5 for 5 or 6 for 6. He was great coming out of halftime, and a lot of those passes were
Absolutely
shorter. It was more efficient. It was a lot of yards after the catch stuff, which I'm more than okay with.
Absolutely. Big thing we need to clean up, penalties. There were a whole lot of penalties during the game. Oh, I'm right there with you. Although I will back this off by saying I thought one of the big receivers who picked up the slack with Dobbs being out, and I know Cone Roller, maybe Clemed Mike, or somebody's going to bring it up at some point, and I'll listen a little later on this evening to your show, maybe during dinner or whatever. But he definitely picked up the slack, and especially that big catch right away. Holy cow! I went absolutely ballistic, Grant. I tell you what, that was insane.
You're right. Yeah, go ahead. One more. Yeah.
One more thing, and I know we got to get to some other colors. We need to stop the run. That defense needs to improve massively. I know Bill talked about it in his show, but the defense needs to improve. So that's all I got for my takeaways, Grant. Appreciate you taking the call, and as always, happy Victory Monday, and go Eagles. Eagles need to win big on Saturday too, Grant.
That was a bummer. They gave it away to Platteville at the end there on Saturday. They do need to win this week. You are correct. Thomas, those are good points. I mean, Jaden Reed's he's a borderline star. I would throw that around. One thing that annoys me is anytime that, and all fan bases do this, but anytime a team gets a good player, it's is this the best guy in the league? We don't always have to go 0 to 100. I think Jaden Reed is star material. So I wouldn't even say he picked up the slack. I think he's their best receiver. He made that. I mean, that catch on the deep ball and triple coverage, that was just an unbelievably big play for the way the first half went. Because if he doesn't catch that, who knows? Maybe the Packers get a field goal at the end of the half, but they could be behind 14-3 or 17-3. It's just such a big catch in the grand scheme of things. So I wouldn't even say, Thomas, that he was picking up the slack. I think he's just the driving force in the passing game. You just want everyone else around him to kind of fall into place and provide their own thing. Wicks didn't really do that yesterday, and obviously Watson is hurt, and Dobbs is at home. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant.
Howdy.
This is Milk Jug out of home.
Milk Jug. Hey, what's up, Milk Jug?
I'm just sitting here cleaning fish, listening to the program. Great program. I listen every day.
Thank you, Milk Jug. What do you think?
I have an opinion, and then I have a question.
Okay.
Have you noticed the Brewers this year never were you confident, even with a 3-4 run lead, you were never confident that they were going to close it out. I mean, there's always this kind of a moment where, geez, I hope they can do it. I don't know if you felt like that or not with the Brewers, but I get the same feeling with the Packers. It's like you get a lead, and I'm still not confident that they can close the game out. And I don't know what it's about. But that's my comment. My opinion is Matt LaFleur does not have that killer instinct. His play call changes when he's got a lead. A lot of coaches do it. But still, he doesn't have that killer instinct as how to put these teams away when he's got a lead. And I don't know if you agree with me, but it's like when I listen to a Packer game, it's like they got a 7, 10, 13-point lead, and I'm still on edge, hoping to get to the end of the game. That's all I have to say, but thanks.
Thank you, Milk Jug. Good luck cleaning those fish. If it wasn't a busy day and it wasn't a Victory Monday and we didn't have a lot to get to, I would ask you, what kind of fish, where'd you catch them? Because I'm curious, but maybe another day. And if you could follow up with a text, Milk Jug, you probably got fish guts all over your hands. The Matt LaFleur stuff is so interesting. You could really spin Matt LaFleur narratives any way that you wanted. I was joking with a friend last night that, like, if you wanted to cook up a take and if you wanted to bang on the drum of Matt LaFleur is a glorified offensive coordinator and he's a great offensive coordinator, but he really struggles with a lot of other stuff. I mean, that take is there. That fruit is hanging so low to just be picked. It's got a second player now who's been suspended in a calendar year, right? Didn't show up ready to play last weekend. Didn't get the ball to Josh Jacobs enough. Right, like all of these bigger picture things with Matt LaFleur. Now, you can't really argue with his scheme. Can't really argue with his play calling. The killer instinct one is interesting. I don't know that he had a killer instinct, for example, when they had Malik Willis running the show. I think he just wanted to run the clock. Okay, that's understandable. I mean, yesterday they had Dontavian Wicks open down the boundary, and I think Dontavian Wicks slowed up a little bit. I think Jordan Love probably put a little bit more under the ball than he should have. I think there was culpability on both sides. If Dontavian Wicks goes up and catches that ball and it went right through his hands, well, I mean, that's as killer instinct as you'll find, Milk Jug. They could have just handed the ball off to run clock, and what did they do? They take a boundary shot to Wicks, who was open. That would have been the kill shot. That would have been the knockout punch had it been connected. So I don't know. With coaching in the NFL, there's so many things in sports. You can kind of see it however you want to see it. I don't think you're spinning it fairly or unfairly, Milk Jug. I think you make valuable and worthwhile points. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant. Happy Victory Monday.
Hey, Cone. Bon dia, Cone. Victory. Let's not undersell this, by the way. Jordan Love had yet to win a start this season. Let's not act like that's nothing yesterday. They really needed that.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much a must win. I mean, look at the rest of the NFC North. Like, It's going to be tough to get a playoff. I mean, obviously, I think 2 playoff teams are coming from the NFC North, but I mean, Vikings almost, I hate to say they're almost clinching the playoffs, but at a 5-0 start, kind of a cupcake schedule coming up, they might have already clinched a playoff spot.
I think I saw yesterday on Twitter, and I'll look this up. I didn't really pay it too much mind yesterday, but I think there's been one team all time that started 5-0 and missed the playoffs, and I think it was the Vikings. Now the schedule's longer, so 5-0 means something a little bit different these days than what it did, say, in 2002. But 5-0, you're right. It's not a guarantee to make the playoffs, but it's statistically just about. You're right.
Yeah, so, it's going to be a battle for the second place, I think, in this division. I think the Vikings have it at this point. But yeah, Jordan Love, I mean, I don't know if he played well enough to win us the game, but he played well enough to not lose us that game. I was very worried with Stafford driving down the field.
Oh,
on
me
that
too.
last drive.
I was sick to my stomach. I was sick to my stomach because I knew if they lose that game, Cone, what we were in for today. That would have been a catastrophe. They did everything, not everything right, but they did so many good things. They were building off of last week. If they would have let that slip away at the end, I just would have been sick to my stomach.
Yeah, and I think kind of Arizona's coming to Lambeau next week. Kind of a trap game, I think. A little bit of a trap game.
I mean, I hope Matt LaFleur and these Packers aren't trapped by Arizona. That's a good team. Kyler Murray can spin it. I kind of like Kyler. I think he's fun. I think he's very, very, very entertaining. What's up?
He's back. He's back.
I think he is. And he's kind of fun to watch. And Marvin Harrison Jr. is a stud, and Trey McBride's a good tight end. They do a lot of fun things. They've always struggled with running quarterbacks. So if they are trapped and they are caught by surprise by this Arizona team, I will have critiques of Matt LaFleur, let's say, a week from today.
And then on the Romeo Doubs story, one question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Something or nothing?
I need to hear from Romeo Doubs this week. Cone, that's an excellent question. Do you have an opinion on Romeo Doubs before I let you go?
Not yet. Need
Okay.
more information to come out. I do have an opinion on our Badger basketball team. Loving the comments coming from Greg Gard this week. Loving it.
Yeah, I do too. And I love that Zach giving them a mention in the update to start the hour. They begin their season coming up soon with Holy Cross. And the WIAC scrimmage, of course, and I'm going to try to cover that game. I need to talk to Zach about that. I like the WIAC UW scrimmage. I get a kick out. I think it's a great thing. So I'm going to definitely attend that one. The Romeo Doubs thing is interesting. And we got one more caller on hold. I'll get to you, but give me 60 seconds. Maybe we'll talk about Doubs when we come back. One thing that bothers me a little bit with how it's been discussed and how it's been talked about is ever since this report came out on Saturday, and it was first reported by Bill Huber, Bukowski had some details. I think Schneidman had others. Others added a little color, not a ton, but others added some. It's like so many Packers fans believe, well, there's more to this story. Well, there's got to be something we don't know. What more do you need to know? A wide receiver who's in his third year, coming up on an eventual contract extension in a crowded wide receiver room, feels as though he's not getting enough targets. Why does there have to be more to the story than that? Well, it's so unlike Romeo Doubs. Well, as a rookie, sure. I mean, what grounds would he have as a rookie or a second-year player? Third-year player coming up on a contract? It tracks. Everyone's talking about this like, well, there must be something more. Okay, so Romeo Doubs is having a bad day. No kidding. No one comes into work having an amazing day and ends up going home because they yelled at their boss in front of everyone. Like, okay, no kidding, he must have been having a bad day. But everyone's like, there must be something we don't know. As if Matt LaFleur showed up early to the facility and took a dump in Romeo Doubs' locker. What do you mean? There's got to be more. No, there doesn't have to be more. Like there's some secret behind all this. No, he's unhappy with his target share. And maybe understandably so. Yesterday, he's like, wait, you want to build the boat around Dontavian Wicks? Oh, he gets open. Great. Can he catch the ball? Like, I get it. I understand it a little bit. And I think this week, Matt LaFleur and Romeo Doubs might meet in the middle a little bit, where Doubs comes in and says, hopefully, for his own good and the good of the Packers, comes in and said, look, I was out of line last week. It's an emotional game. Tempers flare up. I'm over it. I can't wait. I missed being with my brothers out there on Sunday. I can't wait to get back to the grind, and we're going to continue to develop and grow and build this offense and improve over the course of the year, which is exactly what he should say. And by the way, I remain baffled that people mess up at press conferences because I'm sitting here. I can do it in my sleep. I can feed you BS. If anyone wants to hire me just to do their press conferences, I'd actually be a great press secretary. Now, White House press secretary, there's stakes and, it's not as easy as I'm making it out to be, but how people boggle press conferences. You're not under oath. Just lie. Just say the thing you need to say. I don't get it. But I think that's what Romeo Doubs will say this week. And I think he'll be back, and I think it'll be fine. Right? The idea, well, there's something we don't know. Oh, he was having a bad day. Does that make sense now? Is that what you need, Packers fans? And Kirk Benkert, most notably, 608-321-1670. One more call, then we'll take our break. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, reporting here from San Diego. I'm walking around the San Diego State campus listening to you and Cone. Now, yes, I don't think Matt LaFleur did a Najee Davenport into Romeo's locker. I agree with that.
Is there a backstood Najee Davenport take a dump somewhere once upon a time?
Oh, just Google the story. You'll see it. I'm sure your old-time listeners know that.
I'm on it.
Back when he was at the University of Miami. But let's talk about this game a little bit. Packers, all right. They I don't care how they win, just win and stay healthy. I have the mindset of NCAA tournament, survive in advance. This is not Packer weather, Packer time. That's after Thanksgiving through December. So anyone complaining and bitching that they didn't finish the game or didn't have the killer instinct. Who was that guy that called before? What's his name?
Milk Jug in Holman.
Milk Jug. Well, I like jugs. I don't like Milk Jug. Let me tell you something, Milk Jug. They were actually trying to win that game. Jordan, you mentioned the play. They went deep to Wicks. But even before then, there was a little crossing pattern that Jordan Love had. Wide open, Grant. Wide open. You know I was at the game. And it got tipped.
Yep.
They're trying to win the game, Milk Jug. They're not trying to sit on the ball and just not do anything. This isn't like Barry Alvarez back in 1999, just run the ball up the gut. They're trying to win the game. And the Rams were playing their asses off. The Rams wanted to win that game too. They're in do or die mode. So the other team's good too, Grant. They're not a bad team. It's the NFL.
No, I think this year more than any other year, Tony, has reminded me of that. Coming into the year with a really hyped up team that everyone's bought into, that everyone's excited about, and then you get humbled a little bit. Like, you forget, you talk yourself into the offseason. Oh, we're going to kick the crap out of this team. We're way better than this team. And it's like, oh, actually, on a shaky Sunday, Baker Mayfield and a bunch of guys that you had never heard of can beat anybody in the NFL. So as they're trying to get Jordan Love fully back and acclimated and everything built in the right direction. Yeah, getting a win yesterday, even though it wasn't perfect, I'd say it was closer to perfect than other wins that they've had this year. And let's keep in mind it was Jordan Love's first win, but no, I'm not going to get bent out of shape about style points today. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and I know you're up against it, Grant. Let me give you a recap from the game quickly. The
Yeah,
Packer fan base brought it. This is why I love America, why I love the Green Bay Packers. African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, white America, all coming together, female, male, young, old. If you got that Packers shirt on, they're going to say, go, Pack, go. High fives everywhere. What a scene. SoFi Stadium kicks ass. Second favorite stadium after Lambeau. I had a great time. Packer fans helped us get that win. I'm telling you, it got loud in here, Grant.
Oh, the crowd pop, Tony. That's a great call, Tony. I appreciate you being our boots on the ground at SoFi. Yeah, the crowd pop when the second Tucker Kraft touchdown was announced. Just listen to this. That's a road game. Again, there is a difference between, the Packers will have lots of fans there. They won't have to deal with the crowd noise. There's a difference between that and, the Packers fans will be providing crowd noise of their own.
Touchdown.
And Tony, I did not know the rich history of Najee Davenport making stool in a hamper. Thank you for that. And tip of my cap, Tony. That's a hell of a reference and a very funny nugget, topical nugget to begin your call. So I wish I could have appreciated that more, but I didn't know the story of Najee Davenport doing a stinky in a hamper when he was at Miami. Although if that's the worst thing he did at his time in Miami, it's not that. It's not the end. It's not the end of the world. Who among us hasn't taken a poop somewhere where we shouldn't have? I can't think of a time, but in college, come on, there were poops go. Let's just take a break. Actually, we'll be back after this.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think there's so much that we need to build on. You know, I think we leave a lot of plays out there, and then we make some really good plays as well. So, you know, I think it just comes down to consistent execution and trying to be as clean as we can for 4 quarters. And I don't think we've done that yet. I don't think we've played a full 4-quarter game that's clean. So there's so much stuff that we can look back on and watch film when we get back and stuff to clean up. But, you know, I like who we have, and I think we're just going to keep building. But there's definitely a lot of stuff to clean up.
It's Jordan Love yesterday basically asked, hey, 3-2, how do you feel about the trajectory of this team? Where you're trending, certain improvements you can make, trends that you've seen, right? Just big picture. And it was pretty good from Love. We leave a lot of plays out there. We make a lot of plays, right? If this team could just cut down some of the penalties and eliminate some of the drops. I mean, this is an elite offense. They hung 400 on the Eagles in a messy game. They hung almost 500 in the Vikings in a messy game that basically took 2 full quarters to get going. So the potential is there. The pieces are there. The talent is there. Right? They need to tighten it up, become a more disciplined team, become a more attentive team to details and to the little things, their preparation, being ready to go on the first drive of the game in the first quarter and not taking, you know, a full 15 or 25 minutes of game time to get warmed up and to get everything kind of pulling in the right direction. But I thought that was apt analysis from Jordan Love. And to kind of circle back to Tony's point, Tony in Texas, who called, and a very good Najee Davenport drop that I was not aware of. So I tip my cap to Tony on that. But he said, look, it's not Packers weather yet. It's not cold. It's not out. Well, you know, to your point on that, Tony, I don't know that the Packers, I don't know that the cold weather has actually been an advantage for them. I think at times it was a disadvantage the last couple of years with Rodgers, but just strictly speaking to the time of the year that it is, I don't want my team playing their best football early on. That doesn't mean I want them playing bad football, but I want them playing their best football as the year starts to trend, as we get into November, as we get into December. Doesn't mean we have to play bad football now so we can play good football later. I like that they have a starting point, that they've been winning games, and they still have things to clean up, right? Especially with the new defensive coordinator. You hope that as the year goes along, he gets even more in tuned to how to use this guy and how to move around that guy. And so to Tony's point, no, I want my team playing their best football at the end of the year. They're not playing their best football right now. It's not to say that they will play their best football. They can play better, and I hope that they play their best when it matters most at the end of the year. Matt LaFleur spoke back at 4 o'clock. We haven't really talked in detail about the Romeo Doubs thing yet. I don't know. Drama. I texted a couple people on Saturday and basically was told he showed up on Wednesday, blew up at Matt LaFleur in the meeting, went home. Then the next day, he didn't show up. They sent representatives to his house. They found him there. That's been reported. He came back, blew up again. Right? So it was not just an isolated. This happened more than once. This was a couple of instances kind of wrapped up in a greater incident that took place last week, and then they ultimately suspended him. Okay. Matt LaFleur meeting with the media at 4 o'clock. This is how his press conference began. I have about 2 minutes and 20 seconds of audio here. There's a quick Q&A, or 2 Qs and 2 As from Jason Wilde and Matt LaFleur at the beginning. I'm going to play them for you unencumbered. It's about 45 seconds. And then Matt LaFleur gives a long answer, about 90-second answer about how you manage guys who are the same age, who are young, who are coming up together, who all want to get paid, who all want to accomplish certain things, right? How do you keep it on the team? So let's start with a Q&A and then another Q&A from Jason Wilde and Matt LaFleur to begin the press conference today. This is right from the rip.
A little groggy, but we'll survive. A little ornery today.
Matt, did you have your meeting with Romeo that you were looking forward to?
We did. We talked.
How do you feel coming out of it?
I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but I think it was productive, and we look forward to getting him back on Wednesday.
Okay. That's all he said. First question, first answer. Here's the second question, I think from Wilde too.
Did you have any?
Yeah.
Did you have any inkling that he was unhappy before this?
Again, like with all due respect to everything, I appreciate your question. I'd rather, what's done is done, and we're moving forward. And, I expect us collectively as a team to continue to move that way.
What's done is done. Are you going to invest or not?
What's done is done.
I have the brain of a child. What's done is done, Dad. Are you going to invest or not?
What's done is done, and we're moving forward. And, I expect us collectively as a team to continue to move that way.
I understand why Packers fans are skeptical of how this could happen. Well, it seems so out of character for Romeo Doubs. He's always so mild-mannered. He's always been about the team. This is shocking. Well, okay, have we ever actually hung out with Romeo Doubs? We see him on camera, meetings in front of his locker and stuff like that. Yeah, he's stoic. I can also see that dude being an absolute psychopath. I don't know that I've ever seen him smile, right? To act like this is inconceivable. It's really not. He's the third year. He doesn't like how this year is trending in terms of his targets. Let's be real. Who was the wide receiver that everyone was hyping up this Packers offseason? It was Dontavian Wicks. Everyone was talking about Dontavian Wicks. Mina Kimes every other day on NFL Live as we're getting ready for the season. Man, I'm so high on Dontavian Wicks. Mike Renner, who we had on. Although Mike Renner, when he was on, I believe after week 1, he's like, man, I loved what I saw on tape for Romeo Doubs. It seemed like he took a step, but a lot of offseason hype for Dontavian Wicks. And Romeo Doubs is like, man, I've been here with 2 different quarterbacks. I've produced. I catch everything that's thrown my way, except for some of the passes during the Minnesota game last week. But that's neither here nor there. He's got a big body of work. He's proved it at a high level with multiple quarterbacks now and multiple offensive coordinators, right? With different sets of teammates, different quarterbacks, the whole shooting match, right? So I could understand why he'd be a little perturbed. Now, blowing up at a coach, well, it's probably a miscalculation. You're not Jamar Chase, right? You're not Justin Jefferson. You're not, right? You're not that guy. You got to worry about your contract and your role. I get that. Then have a meeting with Matt LaFleur in his office, right? I think he would tell you that. He knows that. He understands that. I don't think he looks back at last week and said, you know what? I should have blown up on him again in practice a third time. I thought Matt LaFleur gave a nice long bit of commentary on managing guys who are all the same age, coming up together, fighting for reps, fighting for numbers, fighting for production. And we'll wrap up the first hour of the Wisco Sports Show with that. I just saw what time it is. We got to take a break. Wrap up hour number 1 next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show. Appreciate you being here. Ellie French, Fox 11 in Green Bay, going to join us. She's still in Los Angeles. She was there for the game yesterday in the locker room. I really want a picture to be painted. I want to know what the vibe was like, especially relative to last week. How is this team progressing? How are they growing? How are they evolving? Because we're 5 weeks into the season already. I want to know how this thing is coming along, because better be coming along. There's been a lot of examples of sloppy, messy play, and they've been able to win. But it's going to need to get better. Matt LaFleur, in his presser earlier today, and I wanted to play this unclipped, basically asked, hey, how do you balance all these young guys coming up together, trying to do this at the same time together? Do we have time for this? I don't know if we have time for this. Let's start it. I'll cut it off.
On board with that concept? Or?
You know, I think one thing that you totally respect about everybody is everybody has their own goals and aspirations and wants, but you just got to try to continue to keep it under what's best for our team. And ultimately, our job is to win football games. And how we do that, Yeah, I would love everybody to go out there and get every number that they'd love to hit, but um, especially for myself and trying to set up this team, it's all about winning. And how do you put each piece together to go out there and win games? And we're fortunate that we have a lot of players that we have a lot of confidence in, and specifically on the offensive side of the ball in regards to trying to get everybody involved. I mean, it's a good problem to have, but it can potentially be a problem if you let it be. And I think for the most part, our guys have done a really good job of just putting the team first, and we're going to continue to stress that. And hopefully, they buy into that, because I am a believer, and I think we've seen it around here. When your team has success, generally all those accolades and come with that. So we're going to keep it about the team and continuing to focus on winning and doing our best to put everybody in a position to set us up to win games.
So there's a bigger picture point that I want to make and talk about. We'll do that after the top of the hour here. We'll get Zach's update. I think towards the end, Matt LaFleur sneaks in a little comment there that is true in that, hey, if you win a lot and you're in big games and you're taking down Patrick Mahomes and you're winning playoff games, and the accolades are going to come. Everyone's going to think of Romeo Doubs, Packers wide receiver, on a team that contributes to winning and winning at a high level. I think there's a lot of truth to that, even if the numbers aren't as high as they would be if you were on some bad team just racking up numbers. Classic Bill Simmons, big stats, bad team, or you know what I'm talking about. 2 minutes. We'll continue talking about this next.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, Matt LaFleur called his meeting with Romeo Doubs productive today after the wide receiver was suspended for yesterday's game due to conduct detrimental to the team. Doubs skipped practice last Thursday and Friday, according to Sports Illustrated, because he was upset with his role in the offense. LaFleur said he gets it, but that no one guy can be bigger than the team.
Everybody has their own goals and aspirations and wants, but just got to try to continue to keep it under what's best for our team. And ultimately, our job is to win football games. I would love everybody to go out there and get every number that they'd love to hit, but especially for myself and trying to set up this team, it's all about winning.
Packers did do that on Sunday, beating the Rams 24-19 to improve to 3-2 on the year. LaFleur expects Doubs back at practice on Wednesday to start getting ready for a visit from the 2-3 Cardinals on Sunday. Kick is at noon. Turning to the Badgers, they're getting to work this week to prep for their trip to Rutgers on Saturday. The Scarlet Knights lost for the first time this year this past weekend at Nebraska. Wisconsin feeling good after a blowout win over Purdue. The day included 134 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns by Tretch Kekahuna, who was named the Big Ten Freshman of the Week today. Again, via Rutgers and Wisconsin on Saturday. Kick is at 11.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Farmers deal with a lot, including long days, stress, and fatigue. This is your reminder to take breaks, stretch, have a snack, and hydrate your body. Avoid farm accidents by keeping yourself healthy. Visit ruralmutual.com to learn how Rural Mutual supports Wisconsin farmers and prioritize safety on the farm.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Bucs opened their 5-game exhibition slate last night with a loss to Detroit. They'll be back in action on Thursday when the Lakers visit Fiserv Forum. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
A little groggy, but we'll survive. A little ornery today.
Matt, did you have your meeting with Romeo that you were looking forward to?
We did. We talked.
How do you feel coming out of it?
I'm not going to get into the specifics of it, but I think it was productive, and we look forward to getting him back on Wednesday.
Did you have any inkling that he was unhappy before this?
Again, like, with all due respect to everything, I appreciate your question. I'd rather, what's done is done, and we're moving forward. And, I expect us collectively as a team to continue to move that way. I'm happy that our guys showed the resiliency that we need to have and that you have to have in order to go on the road and win. It's never easy winning this league. I told them enjoy it, but there's plenty to work on and plenty to improve upon.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
How about that synergy, by the way? Can we all appreciate that synergy between Zach, our sports director, Zach Heilprin, and myself? I'm talking about a cut from Matt LaFleur's press conference. This is interesting. Hey, let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll continue talking about it. Zach's update. What does Zach have in there? Same little bit of audio, same cut. And you might be skeptical. Well, Grant, that's probably Mike Clemens probably emailed you the same file. Oh, contraire Montfrere. I went onto YouTube and I cut that during a commercial break. It's not that Mike will send it to us. Mike is excellent, but it wasn't some clever where we all got emailed that, hey, everyone use this 30-second soundbite. No, that's how dialed Zach and I are as coworkers, but also as friends, very close personal friends. I know that Zach loves when I make that point. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. A couple of texts. We'll get back to your calls as we kind of reset the show. Professional reset here in hour number 2. Ellie French, Fox 11 in Green Bay, going to join us. She's still in Los Angeles after yesterday's game. She's coming up in about a half hour. Mike in Portage. Hey, Mike. Texts in and says, hey, Grant, really digging the old school sweater. Thank you. Are we confident in Jordan Love's decision-making, or does the pick six yesterday show he has a long ways to go? Well, let's zoom out, even on a bigger scale. And I made one graphic for tonight's show. If you're watching on the live stream, and you can, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. The graphic that I said, or made, or said, the graphic that I typed up before the show says, Packers hold on to beat the Rams 24-19. Do you trust the 2024 Packers yet? Do you trust this team? I'm having a hard time trusting this team. They're one drop away, one penalty away, or one bad decision away from Jordan Love from a drive ending and from drive stalling out, or a turnover, or an interception return for a touchdown, as we saw yesterday. The underlying pieces are all there. They have the talent. They have the scheme. All the pieces are there. They just have to be cleaner. And I'm not mad about yesterday's win. I'm thrilled that they were able to hang on to win. Beating Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford. Who texted this in or who tweeted this in? It was Badger Bloody. Badger Bloody tweeted, I watched football for over 12 straight hours yesterday, and let me tell you, Packers fans should feel pretty good about where the team is at. Go on 49ers or Bills or Seahawks or Bengals Twitter and see how that's going for those fan bases right now. I pointed this out to Bill earlier yesterday. Even if you classify this Packers win as an ugly win, which I don't, I think it was a solid win. Not a perfect win, not a confidence-inducing win, but a nice win. Let's just say the most pessimistic folks believe that was an ugly win yesterday. Okay, well then tell me how many other teams would have killed for an ugly win yesterday. The Bengals would have. The Patriots would have, but we're past that. A team like the Bills would have. They lost 23-20. Would have killed for an ugly win. The Niners, who are all of a sudden 2-3 and losing to Kyler Murray at home, they would have killed for an ugly win yesterday. And I don't think the Packers win was ugly. I'm just saying, if someone were to say that it was ugly, fine. Well, then there's 4 or 5 teams around the NFL just yesterday who would have killed for an ugly win. And if you think yesterday's win is ugly, fine. They have a lot to clean up, and I want to see them continue to trend in the right direction. Because at a certain point, they're not a team that shoots themselves in the foot. They're not a great team that beats themselves. They're just an undisciplined team. They're just a team that's not great. They're good. They're a talented team, but they're a messy team. At some point, you are what your tape says you are. I'm sure there's been many football coaches over the years who have said that. Right? So it's a good point, Mike and Portage. And I think maybe that's the overlying theme of the show. Maybe that's the theme of the week. Do you trust the 2024 Packers yet? Do you trust that when you turn on your TV on Sunday, you kind of know what you're going to get? Because I'm not sure that I'm there yet. We're trending that way, but we haven't arrived. And by the way, it's early October. We don't have to be there yet. It's a little vibe check. Do you trust the 2024 Packers yet? A couple more texts here, and then we'll get back to the call. Zach in Altoona says Najee Davenport drop. Well played, Grant. Yeah, Tony bringing up the fact that Najee Davenport, I didn't know this, dropped a dookie in a hamper when he was at Miami. That's why we have Tony for things like that. Duck and Holman says, what's done is done, and who took a dump in my hamper? Yeah, what's done is done, Dad. Are you going to invest? You can invest or not. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric on I-90.
Eric on I-90. Good morning. Your team I don't know that the Vikings won an ugly game yesterday. It wasn't beautiful, but you experienced yesterday just getting a win. It's hard to win in this league. You're not going to complain about how yesterday's game looked for your Vikings, right?
Ugly win, don't care. Ugly win, don't care. Don't care. It was
shouldn't.
a really great first half, really bad second half. Ugly win, don't care. One. Big W, that's all I care about. That's all you guys should care about. You guys shouldn't worry about all this.
And I want to continue to drive this home. I mentioned this at the beginning of the show. I think I mentioned it when Cohn was on the phone with me. They had yet to win a game with Jordan Love under center this year. And I'm not saying, Eric, that if Jordan Love loses yesterday, well, is there a quarterback controversy? No, I'm not saying that, but at some point, the quarterback that you just paid a bunch of money to in the offseason needs to win a game. And they did yesterday. I don't think that's insignificant.
No, I don't think it is either. I mean, we're coming up into week 6 now. You want to have your Hall of Fame quarterback have at least one win. Yes,
yeah, right.
That is true.
Exactly.
That is
Do you think
true.
he's more Favre or do you think he's more Rodgers? Right. I haven't quite decided yet. I think it's hilarious. The Packers fans, those are our only two reference points.
Right. Well, I mean, just think if you were a Chicago fan, you'd have 36 of them. Do you think he's this? Do you think he's that?
Yeah. Do you think he's Glennon or Grossman? Yeah. Oh God, that's a good point.
No. So, it sounds like Jerry Rice, not happy.
Oh, Romeo Dobbs. Sorry. Yeah. It took me a sec. Yep. Your references.
You know what I'm speaking of.
I know what you mean.
We should come up to lacrosse. I mean, they love him. You guys were giving away one of his jerseys.
We were. We gave one away at Flipside during Fest. Absolutely. It was a big draw. Everyone wanted in on it.
Everybody wanted that. So maybe maybe if he's listening, you can say, in lacrosse, they really, really like you. I think I kind of get what's going on with him, right? He is, he came in with Aaron Rodgers on his way out. Then he gets a whole new group of wide receivers, and he's looking to come up on the short end of this stick because in the next 2 years, he's going to come up for a contract before this next group, right?
He will be him and Christian Watson are a year in front of Wicks, Reed, both of the tight ends. Yeah, they're in year 3. Those two guys are in year 3. Everyone else is in year 2.
Right, and I'm just gonna say, I think he's almost like, and he's not. He's like a journeyman wide receiver.
Who's that? You cut out just for a sec. Bo Melton?
No, he's like a journeyman wide receiver, Romeo Dobbs. In Green Bay, if you listen to the talk about the wide receivers, the press that they're getting, Romeo Dobbs would be like a journeyman wide receiver, not the star.
Yeah.
Not the star.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Christian Watson's not going to get it because he never plays, right?
Yeah, I don't know where we stand with Watson. Yeah. I don't know. Watson still has the highest ceiling. He's got the traits. That ankle, I don't even blame him for that ankle injury. His leg should be broken in 3 pieces, and it's not. I weirdly give him credit for being resistant to injuries after getting hurt. I don't know where I stand on that.
Grant, I just like to pimp you about him.
I
just do.
I know.
You know I do.
Hey,
and it's fun.
But before I let you go, because I got to get some other callers. So I'm going to the district this weekend. I'm very excited. I was lucky enough to begin my summer in the district. I will be ending my summer the last weekend of the fly fishing season. So I came in today and I said, "Hey, Ebo, I believe I'm going to take a half day on Friday. I'm going to do Bill's show, and then I'm going to run a pre-recorded show Friday night. So because I don't want to drive in the dark, I want to get there, be able to have dinner, have a fire." And he says, "Well, we have an intern now who's very good, Kate. So why don't you just ask Kate? She likes the hours on Friday if she'll do Bill's show." There is a chance, and I have to feel this out with the boss this evening. There is a chance I might make my way to the district on Thursday night. And oh my God, what a situation that would be.
Gosh. One extra day. It can't get better than that.
No,
Hey, and here's another thing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's another thing about the game. Matthew Stafford has ran up more yards against more teams. He is a dangerous individual to be in the fourth quarter. He has.
Yeah.
He's done it his whole career. So you can't really base your opinion on the defense on what Matt Stafford does in the fourth quarter. he's done it to everybody. He's a really good quarterback.
He is.
Just wanted to say that. Let you go.
I appreciate the respect for the Packers opponent. And McVay is, man, I have so much respect for Sean McVay. That guy, dude's such a good coach. Even without his premier linemen, even without his top 2 receivers, like he was scheming up the running game. We all knew the Rams were going to run the ball yesterday. Just like, by the way, we knew that Matt LaFleur was going to run the ball against the Colts and against the Titans. And the Colts and the Titans still couldn't stop it, right? The Packers against McVay and what he had cooked up, especially in the first 2 quarters, like it's a good coach. I hate to be the Mike McCarthy, because it sounds like an excuse to say, well, the other team gets paid too. Man, this is the NFL. Okay, so they're missing a couple linemen, a couple wide receivers. They have a brilliant coach and a quarterback who's seen everything and accomplished everything. They're not going to lay down. They're going to die, even if they fall down 10 points, which I think is, they fall down 10. What was the Packers' biggest lead? I'll pull it up while we take another call. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Oh.
Sorry, Darnell, I forgot to turn you up. That's on my end. Is this Darnell?
It is.
Hey, Darnell.
It is,
what's going on? Sorry about that.
No, that's all good. You were talking about ugly wins, and the fact that they're only a couple of harebrained Jordan Love plays away from losing several of the games that they've won, right?
Yeah.
I would also say that there are a couple of field goal misses and a couple of other things away from being 5-0.
Yeah.
Right? It's the NFL, like you've said several times here.
I know. I'm beating that horse pretty hard today. It is hard to win in this league. I keep going back to that well.
But it is, right? And I mean, if you're the Steelers right now, you got to be kicking yourself after last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just happy that we're 3-2. Like you go back to September 6th when Jordan Love goes down at the end of that game, and you tell me that we're 3-2 in October,
100%.
and I'd be jumping for joy.
Well,
all right.
And Darnell, to add to your point, because you brought up the Steelers are 3-2, feeling like they let a couple get away. But I don't know that Steelers fans have grand plans for where the season is going. Like the Steelers fans don't have reason to believe that as the season goes along, this is going to get better and it's going to get more dynamic and the mistakes are going to get cleaned up. This Steelers team is kind of the Steelers team that we expected and the team that we're probably going to see the rest of the year. You could hope as a Packers fan, and I hope on some level, realistically, that as the season goes along, these wide receivers get more in tune with Jordan Love, the penalties, the issues, they get more focused, they get better as the year goes along. So 3-2 with lots of opportunity to grow. I think that's something that we should talk about today. Doesn't mean they will. They have an opportunity to grow. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, well, they'll get it better. I don't know. But they certainly have it in front of them, and they have that as a possibility. And you can't say that for some other teams. And that's why when you said the Steelers, that's what came to my mind.
Right. And I mean, here's the thing, though. You can beat this dead horse as well. They're a really young team. Like they just are. That they're still one of the youngest teams in the NFL, and they still have a lot of room to grow.
I think they still are the youngest, right? And the Rams are number 2. That's what we kept hearing yesterday, right?
That they're it's hard to say. Like they don't feel like the youngest team anymore because we heard that all last year.
Yep.
So now it's like, okay, well, we were young last year. Let's be a little bit more mature this year and be a little bit more, head on straight here. Which is why the Romeo Doubs stuff is so frustrating because it's like, dude, do this last year if you were gonna do it ever. Like let's move forward here as a wide receiver room, and we really could have used him yesterday too, which is really the kicker there.
Especially those couple third downs. Like you want a set of hands that you trust on 3rd and 6 when you're trying to run the clock out, and Wicks wasn't that guy, and Reed even dropped one. He forced a punt with a pass that he dropped on 3rd down yesterday. I think that one was in the first half.
Wicks continues to get open on a level that is just it's crazy.
Yes.
It's unprecedented. I've never seen a receiver be able to be so wide open all the time. He just needs to learn how to catch, and he could be like really, really, really impressive. But Romeo Doubs, his big thing is his hands, which we could have used yesterday. So, Matt LaFleur was talking about, we're going to talk with Romeo. We're going to get this ironed out. And I have no reason to believe that he won't after he handled the Jair situation last year. So, I think that coupled with the Badgers' really, really impressive win, even though I know it's Purdue.
It's fine.
But it felt good You know, I got to watch the Badgers and be like, look, they made a play. They made 4 plays in a row.
Yes.
Whoa.
They scored 50 points. If they would have scored 50, Darnell, I appreciate it. If they would have scored 50 against South Dakota or Western Michigan, we would have celebrated them. We wouldn't have come in the Monday and Tuesday after those games, those first 2 non-conference games, and said, well, but it's Western Michigan. We would have said that. The reason we were unhappy is because they beat those teams, but they didn't show me something, impress me. Yesterday, I don't care how bad Purdue is, right? For the purposes of this week, and for the purposes of where Luke Fickell's program is, they just needed something to celebrate. They needed a week where they can all go, okay, we did it. We blew out a bad team. We can have some confidence. We can talk some smack a little bit. You need to get those victories as you're building towards something. And we talked about this during the Packers season last year. It's like, yeah, they're a young team. They're building towards something. But every once in a while, you need to have a week where you can celebrate a little bit to keep from going crazy, to keep from losing your mind, right? I think that week, if nothing else, this Purdue game serves as a really important reprieve for the kids on the team, for the coaching staff, for everyone involved with the Luke Fickell program. It's just, if nothing else, and maybe it turns out to be more, but if nothing else, it's a week-long reprieve that they've needed for months, probably months and months, going all the way back to last year. 608-321-1670, more of your calls, your texts, your thoughts. We also, live from Los Angeles, coming up, Ellie French is going to join us at 5:35. She's still there. She can describe the scenes that she saw at SoFi yesterday. So a lot more of the Wisco Sports Show still to come. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Coming after him, Young. Just heaves it. Somehow is caught for the touchdown on the pick six.
You know, that drive, obviously, when you throw a pick six, that's never fun. And to be able to take us down there in a 2-minute drive and get some critical points when points were really tough to come by, I just think that's what he's all about. And when you get a bunch of tough-minded guys, I think that kind of just it manifests itself and, you know, it's contagious.
I'm trying to get rid of the ball. And, you know, I was falling and I didn't really have balance. And I was trying to get it out of bounds. And it's tough. You know, I'm falling. I don't have enough power. But, I mean, honestly, just throw it at the ground. Like, don't put any air on that ball. Throw it up. And even because I couldn't see where anybody was at. So just throwing it at the ground and not giving any possibility for a bad play to happen.
Apt analysis from Jordan Love. The pick six, because it's horrible, right? It's a horrible play. It looks bad. But I mean, I understand. It's like, okay, so you can accept a safety or you can corkscrew a ball and it's probably going to be incomplete. Like, I understand. And the Maytag man, Zach, in Dodgeville called Bill's show. He doesn't often. I hear him a lot on Over the Line 6 to 10. Called Bill's show earlier today. It's like, well, actually, it was a smart play because the Packers got the ball right back. And had he just accepted the safety, right, then they're punting the ball away. The Rams get 2 points. They get another possession. And then the Rams get the ball to start the third quarter. I don't disagree with Zach in that the way that things unfolded weren't the end of the world because the Packers got the ball right back. They had a chance to get back on the horse, drive down, and get a score before halftime. Yeah, the way that it unfolded wasn't catastrophic. I'm not going to give Jordan Love credit. I don't think he did the calculus in his brain as he's falling towards the baseline of the end zone. I don't think Jordan Love was thinking, well, I could take the safety, but then we'd have to punt them the ball back. And how much time is left in the half? Well, then the Rams would get to close this half with the ball, and then they get to begin the third quarter with the ball. So, you know what? Actually, I'm going to let it rip. And then he threw it. Like, no, I don't think he was. I don't think he was doing the math in his head. I don't think that's how that went. Right? It ended up working out okay. Horrible, looked bad. Everyone was dragging him on the internet, comparing him to Favre. Right? That picture of him in the Favre jersey showing up to the Vikings game last week. Obviously. But the way that it turned out wasn't the end of the world. The Packers got the ball back, and I was okay with it because I'm sitting at my desk watching the game. I'm like, okay, just all right, get the ball back. Let's go. You're back on the horse. This game is still infinitely winnable, and that's what I tweeted yesterday after that play happened. I said, if this team can just stop doing dumb, I used the S word. Sorry to my followers. I used the S word. If the team could just stop doing dumb stuff, this game is so winnable. It's so winnable. It's like when you're playing League and you're just getting stomped and you just have that confidence. Like, yeah, but if we just stop playing stupid, we can still win this game. It's still very winnable. And it was. And the Packers basically had to have a good quarter and a half played by Xavier McKinney. Xavier McKinney, we made it until 5:25 without mentioning him. The interception again, 5 picks in 5 games is wild. He almost had a 6th. But he also knocked that ball out early in the game to force a punt. He was there to recover a fumble later in the game. He's just been everywhere. And it reminds me a lot of the impact that Adrian Amos had in 2019 when he was signed, but better. He could just do more. Right? He's got a wider skill set, and the center field that he plays, he's just so natural. And the defense that Jeff Hafley wants to run, kind of need a piece like Xavier McKinney. Now, I remain hopeful on Jeff Hafley. I think people are losing their mind a little bit on his defense schematically for only 5 weeks. But that's fine. It's sports. It's the NFL. Every Sunday is a must win. This is a results-oriented business, and we don't get to sit around. This is not Adrian Griffin time where we get to, wait until February to make a choice. Although they did. I don't think they waited until February to fire Adrian Griffin. So maybe that's a bad example. But I remain pretty hopeful on what Jeff Hafley's doing. I've been really disappointed with Rashawn Gary. Like, I'm waiting for him to have a game. He hasn't. I made a graphic. If you're watching on the live stream, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, on Twitter at Wisco Grant, like, he just had another 0 pressure game. He's had 3 games now in 4 weeks without a pressure. So for all of the people that peddle woke pass rushing stats, and I say that tongue in cheek because pressures do matter and hurries do matter and quarterback hits do matter. There's things that matter that aren't sacks. Of course. But then you need to get those things. Like, if you're going to tell me, well, sacks, that's not the only thing that matters. Pressures matter too. Well, he doesn't have any of those either. He's not getting the pressures or the hurry. He's not doing the other things either. So if the underlying numbers were there, right? That would be one thing. It would be like in baseball. It's like, why is this home run hitter not hitting home runs? Well, you got to look at the underlying stats. There's more to it than just whether or not the ball is flying out of the yard. Okay, well, if the hitter's also not barreling up the ball and the exit velocity is poor and the launch angle is poor, okay, well, it all sucks, right? Yes, it's a results-oriented business. We look at the process to help explain the results, but the process with Rashawn Gary hasn't been good. The underlying stats aren't there. He just had his third zero-pressure game in 4 weeks. He's got 1 sack in his last 12 games. And his pressure rate is in the tank from where it was from last year, which was also in the tank from where it was the year before. And I will not have Jeff Hafley scapegoated. Well, it's the scheme. An elite pass rusher should be able to rush the passer in any scheme in the NFL. Would TJ Watt need a specific scheme to cater to? Would TJ Watt go 12 games with only 1 sack because the scheme was using? Of course not. And I'm not saying that Rashawn Gary is TJ Watt, but it's 1 sack in 12 games. I'm not nitpicking here. He needs to start to show it. And by the way, Kenny Clark too. I won't accept, well, it's the scheme. Okay, he is a well-rounded, dynamic, playmaking nose tackle in the prime of his career. The scheme is secondary. You'd be able to make plays in any scheme if that's your skill set. It's not like he's a niche player in the secondary who can only play slot corner. He's not Micah Hyde. He's one of the highest paid edge rushers in football. That should translate in any scheme. 608-321-1670. Got time for one call, then we're going to get to our guest, Ellie French, Fox 11, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Ridge Runner Mark, how are we doing?
Ridge Runner Mark, I'm great. Good evening.
Hey, so real quick, what is the answer then for Rashawn Gary? Because I get where you're coming from, and I agree with you 100%. He's not showing anything, but frankly, most of the defensive line isn't showing anything. I don't know what they're doing wrong. I also not sure exactly they're doing right. I mean, the end result is they're holding opponents to a pretty low scoring standard, except for the 2 they lost. And even then, it was still barely 30 points, which is still winnable if we have a really, really good offense. But
barely 30. That's
barely.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying.
Good. Yeah. So, but what exactly is the answer? Is it more just effort? Is it just dumb luck? Is it a combination of things? I'm honestly curious. I'm not sure exactly what the deal is because it's very frustrating.
I would say it's more dumb luck, and I gotta go because we got to get to our guest, Ridge Runner. I'm sorry to cut you off. I would say it's more luck if the pressures were there and the pass rush win rate was there, but that stuff's not even there. Basically, what I've seen on Twitter today is, well, I've gone and looked at the all-22, and actually, he was getting double teamed quite a bit, and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, okay, so the guy who's making dozens of millions of dollars a year, he's near the top. He's not the top, but he's near the top at his position. I shouldn't have to pour over the all-22. By the way, I should never have to watch the all-22. I'm an all-22 denier. But I should not have to pour over the film with a microscope to understand how Rashawn Gary is impacting the game. I should be able to see it. And I'm not. And I haven't been. So I don't know what we're going to do there. Kenny Clark is another thing. I don't have time for 2 things. We're doing the one thing right now. We're doing Rashawn Gary right now. Well, actually, we're done doing Rashawn Gary. We got to take a break. We're going to get to our guest, Ellie French, who's in LA. She was at SoFi yesterday. She could paint the picture for us, what she saw, what she heard in the locker room, the vibe. I'm very interested about that. She'll join us next on the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
After replay assist, the ruling on the field is a touchdown.
A second touchdown for Tucker Kraft in the quarter, both after McKinney takeaways.
The crowd pop. I've said this a couple times since the show started. There's a difference between not having to deal with opponent crowd noise and the traveling fans actually providing crowd noise. I'm not shocked that there were a lot of Packers fans yesterday. That was strong. It was like a WWE crowd pop. It's the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Might have time to get a couple callers in. I know there's a few of you on hold. If you can hang out 10, 12 minutes, I might be able to get to you. But first, first-time guests to the show. And highly recommended, by the way, from Mike Clemens, who said, hey, Ellie is still there. She was at the game yesterday with Fox 11. You should give her a call and see if she can tell you about the game. So, Ellie, just know that you are quite a recommendation from Mike Clemens I got earlier today.
Oh, Mike Clemens is the man. I'm so excited to be on. Thanks, Grant, for reaching out. I'm really honored. And yeah, Mike is great. We miss him. I know he's going through a lot right now, but his spirit is so missed. He's such a
Mike.
Beacon of light in the locker room. Every time I see him, I'm so happy. So.
Yeah, well, we had him back on Bill's show earlier today for a good 45 minutes. And I love his storytelling. I love his approach. So it's good to know that he's going to be doing more stuff now as the season moves along. And just in time, the season's starting to heat up. This team feels like they're getting better. Did yesterday feel like a step in the right direction? And you can speak to what you saw on the field or the vibe or the attitude that you're feeling around the guys after the game. Like, did yesterday feel like a positive step? Because I think they were due for one.
You know, it's hard because it wasn't a complete game from them. And I think if it was a complete game from them, I would have felt like that, Grant. But it was like they had some really great moments. And then there were some moments where you were just like, you're shooting yourself in the foot. That's kind of uncharacteristic. And I think it was Jordan or Dontavian, I can't remember who it was, that said that basically a lot of their struggles are kind of self-inflicted things. Like they're just putting themselves behind the chains offensively and making things a little bit more difficult. So I feel like, I don't want to say step in the right direction per se, but it was a much needed win, because when you think about just the fact of where the NFC North is, the Vikings keep winning. It's like they can't afford to just lose these types of games against a Rams team that's been very depleted. And so they needed the win. It was a much needed win after the way things went against the Vikings. But there are still some things where I'm just like, this doesn't feel quite like the Packers team we saw at moments last season. I just feel like, and maybe that's in part with Jordan having missed the 2 games and trying to just get back into the rhythm of things. But there were some really good moments for sure yesterday. I mean, you playing the Nat Pop of Tucker Kraft and what he did, he was amazing. Xavier McKinney, his 5th interception in 5 games. But I still just feel like we need to see more of a complete game from this team for me to feel like, okay, they're things are trending in the right direction.
Do you think when Packers fans, because after the Vikings game last week, I kind of talked about how Jordan Love was probably a little rusty, right? And some coaches, we heard about that in press conferences too. Is there legitimacy to that? Like, you're around the team and fans, we tell ourselves what we want to hear. Is there legitimacy to Jordan Love missing time, coming back, reintegrating himself into practice, into the locker room as the starter? Like, is that a process? And is that something that you've seen kind of work itself out maybe the last couple of weeks as he's returned?
Oh, yeah, I would say you definitely saw it in the Vikings game, because you could just tell. And maybe that was in part because he's maybe a little nervous about just, hey, how mobile can I truly be? And kind of when guys say when they've missed time, okay, I got to get back into this game, get hit, know what that's like, and see how that feels. And so maybe there were just some of that uncertainty with him and just not sure, like, hey, how's my knee going to be? And, if I do get hit, how is that going to feel? And how mobile can I truly be in a game situation? So I feel like against the Vikings, we definitely saw a little bit of that rustiness from him. Obviously, it kind of, as the game went on, he settled. They started to kind of come back. But there were still some moments for sure where just timing with throws and stuff was maybe off. But I will say, obviously minus the pick 6 he had yesterday, where you're like, oh, you don't want to take the safety, but then that happens. I would say that you saw a lot more comfort from Jordan in the game yesterday. I just feel like the deep throw to Jaden Reed is such a huge example of that, because it's just like, okay, like you could feel like he was comfortable and he definitely had time to throw. So I think that yesterday you saw, okay, like he's definitely getting back to being himself and feeling like himself. So I feel like this next game against the Cardinals, like, will really feel like Jordan is kind of back to the Jordan Love that we know he is.
I hope so. And you want to see those penalties decrease, some of those brain fart moments decrease, where maybe, to your point, Jordan Love and his wide receivers maybe just aren't quite on the same page out of the break. It's not like they're running the wrong route like we saw last year, but a difference of a yard can make a big difference. And mean quite a big deal with ball placement, especially on third down, as we kind of saw late in the game. Ellie French is here, Fox 11 on Twitter at Ellie French TV. What was the locker room like after the Vikings game last weekend? Because I listened to Matt LaFleur's presser, and he did not seem devastated over that loss. I think he felt it seemed like, all right, we got our starting quarterback back. We built a lot of momentum as the game ended. We didn't lose, but now we have a stretch coming up where we can really make some hay. What was it like, just to go back a week ago, what was it like in the locker room after last week, and maybe compare that to what you saw yesterday?
Yeah, I will say you bring up a good point, because after a loss, you never know exactly who's going to want to talk and what that mood is like. And because of the fact that it was a division game and everyone kind of knows, what's at stake, and the fact that the Vikings were coming in undefeated and all that, like, I didn't know if they were going to be upset by the loss, but I think they weren't, for the fact that they came back and it made it a close game. Now, if it would have been the opposite, where in the beginning, how they were just getting completely blown out and it was a blowout loss, I think they wouldn't have been as happy. But when you went into the locker room, they weren't happy by any means. They knew the mistakes that they had, but you could sense that they're like, okay, we're proud of fighting, like staying in the game and fighting, and just knowing like, okay, we can do this. There's a lot of season to go. We just got to keep getting better. And I think also probably in part two, just with it being Jordan's first game back, everyone was just like, okay, it's early. There's no panic. Like, we can only go up from here, hopefully. So I would say the mood definitely was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Because again, you never know going into the locker room with a loss, how they're going to feel. Guys are going to want to talk, but they were understanding again that there's things they need to work on and try to get better. And I would say yesterday, they were very happy of it as well, but also they do understand too. They were happy to answer questions just about, hey, like, why couldn't you guys really get going in the first half? What do you think the issue was? And just trying to play more of a complete game and what they need to do moving forward in order to make that happen. But guys were definitely very happy, that's for sure. There was so much excitement for Tucker. There was so much excitement for Xavier. Evan Williams too, making that huge defensive play at the end to, seal the game for them. There was just, the locker room is always excited when a guy has a day, because they want to celebrate him. So there was a lot of excitement yesterday for sure in LA.
Was anyone talking about the Dobbs thing? He wasn't there. Was that noticeable? I don't know. What did you hear and see, anything related to Romeo Dobbs that you thought was interesting?
There wasn't much talk about it. I believe LaFleur did talk about it in his post-game press conference, just kind of mentioned being proud of guys, because like that is a distraction that they had to deal with during the week. And I think he was just proud of the guys for being able to navigate that. It wasn't so much, questions weren't so much directly asked to guys about Romeo. I think it was more kind of those questions about like, hey, it's been a weird week. You had this distraction. How happy are you that you guys were able to kind of navigate through that and get this win? So there wasn't really anything specifically just directed with like, do you wish you had Romeo there? What's your thoughts on everything that's going on? I think it was more just kind of like, okay, we'll see moving forward with the situation with Romeo. And I know that Brian Gutekunst said in the statement he put out that they want to welcome him back after the suspension. So I think it'll be interesting to see what LaFleur, which I believe he already talked today. I haven't heard what he said yet. Curious what he said today on the matter. And then also when Romeo is back in the locker room, if he is willing to talk to us and just kind of give some clarity into the whole situation and sort of what was going through his head. And then just kind of that conversation that he has with, first off, his receiving core, and then the rest of the locker room, and just kind of how he explains to guys, if he does, here's what I was thinking, and kind of how he moves forward from there. So
just to give us some background as we see, I think he's going to come back. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal, because I don't really know that Dobbs has any other choice, even if he isn't thrilled about his usage. I don't think he's in a spot to really make much more of a stink than he already has, but we'll see. Have you had any personal interactions with Romeo? What can you tell us about the way that he clicks and the way that he works? Because I don't know that we know a whole lot about him.
Yeah, that receiving core and just everyone in that locker room. And I know you always hear guys say it like, oh, we are close and this and this and that, but really so many guys in that locker room are. And I think what I really noticed it the most was being able to go through training camp this season and actually see it. And even just looking back on video this week, trying to find video of Romeo, it's like a lot of those guys are always together. Like him and Christian are together, laughing, having fun. Like, and also when one scores, like the others are immediately rushing to them, being excited. And can't remember if it was after the Wicks touchdown, particularly maybe against Vikings, like I want to say I saw Romeo literally run to him and be excited for him. So it's interesting because I think what's been fascinating about it is it's like Romeo was never a player that I would have thought would do this. Sure. It was very shocking, truthfully, because, he is pretty about the team and he's a little bit more quiet. He will talk to the media though when he does, though sometimes he's a little bit more quiet and kind of, to himself and stuff. But I mean, we see what he does on the field. He's incredible. He's very talented, but that's why I'm kind of wondering, what it will be like when he does get back. But I think that there's a bigger goal for this team. They know that, hey, they want to get to the Super Bowl. They have these aspirations. They want to win championships. And so I think, again, it'll be interesting to see how that conversation is when Romeo does get back, what he says to the guys, and if they really can move forward from here. But yeah, I will definitely say it was kind of a just shocking thing, because when you hear it's personal, you think maybe it's family related or something's going on. And so to kind of figure out what exactly was unfolding, it was definitely shocking, the fact that it was Romeo. So, but he is very nice. He always, again, he's willing to talk to the media, even though it's not his favorite thing. And you can walk up to him and have any sort of conversation, whether it's about football or life. And so he really is a great guy, as are so many guys in that locker room, truthfully.
It seems like that's what we hear. Well, that's good to hear. I guess I'm hoping for the best. I just don't understand. I don't understand what he could stand to gain from creating more of a scene this year. And I don't want to say scene, but you know what I mean? Like I don't know that he's in a position to gain much by standing out in the way that he did last week. So you're hanging out in California. What are the sights you're going to see before you come back?
Oh my gosh, I am. I'm standing outside right now. I'm looking at some palm trees, soaking up some sun. Well, I've been at it's the Academy of Arts Museum for the last 2.5 hours. I've got my mom out here, so we're checking it out, but
that's cool.
It's amazing. I would recommend that. It opened in 2021, and if you go to this museum, they've got costumes and memorabilia from iconic films like The Godfather. I just saw Heath Ledger's costume that he wore in The Dark Knight. It's a personal favorite movie, so that was really cool. A pair of ruby slippers that Judy Garland wore. I also love The Wizard of Oz. So it's a great museum. I already got in and out last night, so we've checked that off, but probably just going to enjoy the sun, seeing the palm trees, some sightseeing, probably maybe do some bike riding, eat some good food. I actually grew up in San Diego, so I'm a SoCal girl, so it's very exciting to be back here.
I was in San Diego last April. You don't really need to do anything other than walk along the beach and feel the sun. Like you don't need to queue up a lot of activities to enjoy your time out there. So thank you. I know you're with your mom and you're doing stuff out there. So thanks for the time. And I really appreciate this, Ellie. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, she gets it. She's like, do your thing. So thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Married to the game. Ellie French, Fox 11. Follow her on Twitter at Ellie French TV. And I know people rip on the Santa Monica Pier when it shows up in the B-roll on television broadcast. The Santa Monica Pier is cool. You go there as a tourist, and yes, it's touristy, but you feel like you're in a movie, and I will not apologize. The last time I was in LA, we walked all over them. Yeah, we walked all over the Santa Monica Pier. Why would you not? It's cool. Felt like I was in Fletch. 608-321-1670. Quick call as promised. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant Bills, how we doing?
Vagabond, I am great.
What a hell of a weekend, a week. This is the best month of the year.
It's pretty
70 and sunny every day. What's happening down south, sometimes I wish my wife and her PhD would move us somewhere with a little bit more sunshine, but then October hits in Wisconsin.
Hurricanes.
It reminds me every time.
Yes,
this is just perfect.
Yeah. Well, you want to go Badgers or Packers? We got about 2 minutes.
Yeah, real quick on the Packers. Romeo Doubs, I think it's an agent thing, right? And you think about a guy like Romeo Doubs, 4th-round pick. He's making $1 million this year, which 50% of it's tax, so he's pulling home $500,000, which to us sounds like a ton. But when you're in that NFL lifestyle, you're going to pay for everything that an NFL player has to pay for. He's not making a lot of money as a 4th-round pick, and he is a valuable player. So he's valued at $12 million. He's making $1 million. If he doesn't get touches, man, that's we're talking this guy's 3 to 4 year window to make money. So I can definitely see his perspective on get me touches, man. I got to get paid. So. That's quick there. Hopping over to the Badgers quick. I saw your Greg Gard note on the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
John Blackwell getting compared to lacrosse star Johnny Davis. So can't wait for Badger Hoops to get going. And then this Badger football team, man, I'm starting to enjoy the dialogue more than the actual sport when it comes to college football is something that I've noticed. And seeing Wisconsin finally getting its speed players off the bench. Those Paul Chris guys buried in the cupboard, getting the speed on the field. That yak for Braden Locke. Those guys just outrunning everybody on the field was freaking awesome to watch. So hopefully Phil Longo learned something. Maybe get those Paul Chris players a little bit more involved, and maybe they'll start supporting some points.
I love you and Ben Kenny both do it. You point out anytime someone makes a play, it's like, well, actually, that's a Paul Chris guy, you bastard. Excellent points. And maybe it's an agent thing. The agent's got to have half a brain to know that, okay, storming out of practice will make a point. I don't know what's going to accomplish. 608-321-1670. You can have a minute or two for calls when we come back. If you can hang on, I promise. Otherwise, we'll wrap up the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, only a couple minutes. Got 2 callers on hold. If we stick it to about 60 to 90 seconds per, we can get them both in. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Who?
Denny from
Bowman. Denny. It sounds like you're inside a vacuum cleaner. I got you now. What's going on?
Oh, I'm sorry, buddy.
No, you're
just a few observations. We can't stop the run, and we can't run because we have nobody that blocks for us. And people are getting down on Walker and stuff, you know. Well, he had 9 tackles, okay? And it's getting old, you know, because I think our running back is good. I think Jacobs is a damn good running back, and I heard that on Bill's show today too. He agreed, and we just aren't getting any protection, to do anything. And did you see Van Ginkel yesterday get another pick?
Denny, I think of you anytime Andrew Van Ginkel plays football. I'd trade Rashawn Gary and that contract for Andrew Van Ginkel and his contract in a heartbeat right now.
I hear you, buddy. I hear you. But
I'm just glad. I'm glad you continue to reference that, because if I were you, I'd bring that up all the time. And Denny, we'll have to talk more tomorrow. I'm sorry. There's one more caller on hold. I will have serviced everyone today when I take this call, and I will be able to sleep like a baby tonight knowing that. West Coast Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Ron from Madison.
Hey, Ron. What's up? Bring us home.
Hey, I'm glad we stopped them yesterday, but it shouldn't have come down to that, because the play before, we have the ball, we got the lead, and Jacobs rips off a 14-yard. Then we throw the ball 3 times in a row.
Right? That drive started the exact way you'd want it to begin with that Jacobs run. You're right.
Yeah, and I said, okay, keep running the ball. We're getting some yardage here. Make the Rams use their timeouts. And what do? We throw the ball. That kind of upsets me. So
this team derails themselves very quickly. A negative pass play behind the sticks, a penalty, like just one little thing, and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 15. You know what I mean?
Then the drive before that, they were up by 11 and we're driving. Then they make some bad plays. Then we're out of field goal range. So that just finish the game the right way. So
slam the door. And hey, later on in the season, if they want to be good teams, they want to win playoff games, they're going to have to slam the door. They could have slammed the door against the Niners last year in the postseason. They didn't do it. The offense can slam the door. Luckily, the defense did it for him yesterday. Let's not minimize that. And yeah, they ran for a lot of yardage. The defensive front, the linemen and the edge rushers have been disappointing this year. You also tip your cap to a certain degree to Sean McVay. He's really good. Even when you know they're going to run, he's really good. He's going to find a way to scheme up some of those yards. So you got to remember that. McVay's really good. Just like LaFleur was against the Colts when everyone knew they were going to try to run the ball. Hey, also, shout out to Manuel Wilson. He looks like a legit running back too. There's some juice there. He has taken a lot of steps from last year, and that's not nothing. That's another thing that I wish I would have mentioned earlier in tonight's show. But again, a lot of meat on the bone. We picked at it for a full 2 hours. Appreciate Ellie French. You can go listen to the podcast. We'll be back tomorrow at 4. I can't